Well, yet another rain out for your Detroit Tigers, but we still have a lot to discuss today. We're going to talk about May, the month that is about to be behind us. We're going to look ahead, take a look at June. We're also going to break down some comments that Scott Harris made yesterday. We're going to talk injury update. We'll obviously preview the doubleheader today against the Pittsburgh Pirates and more. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Wednesday to all. Got a rain out episode for you today, so no game to recap. The Tigers still at 26-27 since the last time we talked. Obviously, no episode yesterday due to Memorial Day, but today, as you're listening to this on this fine Wednesday, what's hopefully a fine Wednesday weather-wise, the Tigers will play 2 ball games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll preview those at the end. That's the entire series. It's only a 2-game set. They're going to knock it out in a day. So we will preview that. There is going to be some really, really fun pitching in this series, which is really fun from a baseball fan, mildly concerning from a Tigers fan perspective, given the offensive struggles so far this season. Well, like I said, we'll preview that at the end today. So starting off with May, what did we learn? This isn't a super long conversation because I feel like it's something, if you are an everydayer, you are very well aware of what we learned throughout the month of May, right? I don't just want to regurgitate everything that we've been saying 5 days a week for the entire month of May, but if in case it's your first time or in case you maybe didn't catch a ton of Tigers baseball in the month of May, I think the biggest takeaway I have is just that this team proved that the offense is never going to carry them over a prolonged period of time, right? They're, if the offense is struggling, they're going to go through their cold stretches. Obviously, if it heats up, they have the ability to win some ball games, as we currently stand on a 3-game win streak outside of the 14-11 win against the Blue Jays, right? Like the offense is very rarely going to bail this team out. And I think to articulate it further, my biggest takeaway is just like the pitching can't afford to struggle for long periods of time because the offense is never going to bail the pitching out, at least again, for like a prolonged period of time. And at the end of the day, the pitching can't really afford to have it hit the fan. And we learned that in, what was that, the 3rd week of May when we lost 5 straight. So I think that is, if we're recapping May and we're talking about the struggling that happened in the month of May, the well under 500 record, etc., those were my takeaways. So looking ahead at June, I think if we start off with the same type of premise, what are you looking for in the month of June? I mean, my goodness, this is going to shock you. I would love some bats to wake up. I know that that's a super hot take, and you really come here for the hard-hitting analysis, but I'm going to be Captain Obvious. You know what I mean? Like, a super hot take, I know. But, I would like Spencer Torkelson to maybe show a little bit of consistency and that he's figured it out. I would love Riley Green to not look like he has in the month of May. I would like Mark Canha to get his head back above water. I mean, Colt Keith is like the one person that has been, really showing signs of life consistently over the last couple of weeks. Hopefully that can continue. It's not going to be at this pace, but hopefully that can continue, right? And doesn't revert back to how he was. I'm looking for like more than a 2-game in a row sample size of like some good offense is really all I'm looking for. I'm not asking for 10 runs a game for the month of June, but just like any sort of like, hey, for the last week, the offense has scored 4+. That'd be a nice change of pace, right? Any sort of consistency from that is that, and that is obviously going to come from, if it does, those players like Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, etc., taking steps forward like they didn't do in the month of May. So in Torkelson, the last couple of games been swinging a better stick, to be fair to him as well. If we look at the opponents in the month of May, month of June rather, I don't really love doing this, but I've realized that I have done it every single month so far this season. So for the sake of consistency, I'm going to do it again and just list the opponents that they play. But at the end of the day, like if you're good, you're like good teams don't look at like month to month and go, oh, like we have a chance to win here and we might lose here. Like the good teams just go into every series and try to win it. You know what I mean? So like I don't love doing this, but again, for the sake of consistency, we're going to anyway. You start off with games 3 and 4 of a 4-game set against the Red Sox that starts this weekend. Then you have the Rangers, the Brewers, the Nationals, the Astros, the Braves, recently Ronald Acuna Jr. out for the season, the White Sox, Phillies, and Angels. That last week and a half, I would say you are looking at maybe an opportunity to win some games. The Phillies are one of the best teams in baseball right now, but White Sox and Angels both absolutely dreadful. I mean, the Nationals aren't very good, right? Like if you just want to do that game, like we can, I guess, but like the Red Sox are a good, like a solid, like competitive ball club. I think they're very overlooked in like the national media circles. I actually think the Red Sox are a pretty good team. They've also got crazy injury bug situation going on so far this season. The Rangers, slower start this year, but are still more talented than the Detroit Tigers for sure. The Brewers having a really good year. The Astros, obviously terrible season, but still a fine roster, and you've played them and lost to them already this season. The Braves are one of the best rosters in baseball. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I really, that's why I don't love doing, like, you play good teams and bad teams. You should go in and try to win every game you can and win every series at a minimum that you can. So that is what June looks like. Let's keep the ball rolling. We're going to talk about some comments that Scott Harris made to the media on Tuesday, to MLB Network, actually. So we're going to talk about those right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships, and also it keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will be back tomorrow, hopefully, assuming weather holds, on Wednesday, recapping 2 games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll preview those really quickly at the end. Also, be sure to watch Locked On Sports Today. You can subscribe on YouTube or check it out for free in the Amazon Fire TV channels app. So we spent segment 1 just kind of doing our usual end of the month conversation. What did we learn in the previous month? What are we looking forward to in the next month, in the following month? So we're done with that. I want to take a minute here and just talk about some comments made by Scott Harris through MLB Network on Tuesday. Had a 7 or 8 minute conversation, and some comments he made absolutely were the talk of the town on Tuesday. Let me get some quotes for you here. A lot of people covered this. I know 97.1 did a whole article and talked about it. Evan Petzold of the Freep talked about it. Plenty of people covered this. One of the quotes in this, I don't know, monologue in this conversation was, quote, "From the moment I got here, Chris Ilitch said that we would have the resources we need to build a really competitive club and build a club that can sustain winning over a long period of time." Then when he was asked if the payroll will increase, even one of the questions specifically alluded to, the fact that back, 10, 15 years ago, they were toward the top of all of baseball in payroll. His quote, and this is the one that blew up, was, quote, "We're not quite there yet as far as spending at that level because we need to build the foundation of this team to put us in a position to supplement it with free agent signings in the upcoming winters." I don't have a ton to say on this. If we get one segment out of it, that works for me. I don't have, 30 minutes of dialogue here with this comment. I will say, though, it is so possible to do both. It's so possible. And one of the biggest lies that front offices tell fans is that is not possible. It is. It's super possible to bring in talent from the outside, to spend money in free agency while also developing the talent that you have. Right? And in some sports, you look and like basketball, for instance, right? You see they have the lottery now because now they've had it for a long time, but because they don't want tanking. And that's because one basketball player can single-handedly change the outlook of an entire organization. Baseball, not quite the same, right? You're not going to draft, one guy that's going to come in and be so good that you're just going to win a World Series just straight up off of one dude's success. And so when these comments are made in the sport of baseball, it's really ridiculous to me because and we'll get, I'm not saying Scott Harris has like done no good here. Okay. I'm not one of those people either. We'll get into that in a second, but it's just the only reason you would, not spend is either to like continue, you're at the bottom of the tanking kind of thing. You're at the bottom of the rebuild. You want high draft picks so you can get better players, etc., whatever. Or you have the conversation that we had a lot going into this season, which was, we want to allocate, I think the phrase and terminology was earmark at bats for young players, right? And you want to give young players an opportunity to prove themselves. And that is clearly what they have wanted to do this season. I draw some comparisons. I also co-host Locked On Red Wings. And I think Yzerman has done a really good job of being, proving that both can be possible in different sports. Absolutely. Not trying to compare apples to oranges here, but it's a guy that went out and while having one of the best farm systems there are in hockey, widely considered to be that by a lot of sources, right? Also went out and brought in 11 NHL players in free agency last year and traded for Alex DeBrincat. So like this, and again, I'm not trying to compare sports. I understand that that's kind of a slippery slope. I totally get it. It's just, it's super possible to do both. It's super possible to bring in talent that will help the major league team right now and will win you ball games right now, and also develop talent. If you even look at the Tigers' development path over the last 3 or 4 years, a lot of people have given Scott Harris credit for the improvement, we'll say, of the farm system since he took over. And I think that while he does deserve some credit, I don't mind his drafts. I know the Wyatt Langford thing is going to be talked about forever. I really don't mind his draft. And I don't mind Kevin McGonigal, love, right? Probably wouldn't have been able to get him if they didn't go underslot at the top. There's a lot of, politics with that. I don't mind what he's done in that area, but he hasn't really brought in a lot of prospects, right? Via like trade or anything like that. The prospect pool has improved under Ryan Garca, right? And that overlaps with Scott Harris, and Scott Harris has been his superior and overseen that, and he does deserve credit. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any, But the direct correlation between the improvement of this farm system is very much Ryan Garko more than anything else, right? If you're looking for the biggest key factor, that's what I personally would point to. I'm not trying to tell you if you think it's all Scott Harris or none Scott Harris that you're necessarily wrong. This is just how I view the system. So with this, we have to lay the foundation before we're going to spend money thing. What does that even mean? Right? Does that mean we have to have the highest ranked farm system in baseball before we can spend money? That seems odd, like a weird thing. Does it mean that you have to have an established core? Is that it? Well, that's rather subjective, right? Who knows when that's going to happen? Who knows what that even entails? Who knows who is that 5 players? Is that an arbitrary number? It's just like, oh yeah, once we have 7 core pieces, then what does that even really mean? And right now, we played this game a couple of weeks ago on this show, right? Right now, if you're to look at the major league lineup, you tell me how many players on the major league lineup are long-term pieces to this core. And if the number is concerningly small, then you should probably be really worried about these comments, I feel like. Because that would, if you think that there's only 2, 3, 4 players on the major league roster right now that are in here for the long haul, then my goodness, right? If we need to wait until there's an established foundation before we're going to add, major league talent, then that's kind of scary. That's kind of scary. Because I'm not sure how many people on the major league roster are, long-term pieces. And there's a difference between, we're going to sign Andrew Chafin to a 2-year deal versus we're going to go out and be one of the highest paid, rosters in baseball. I understand that too. He's not saying he's just not going to sign anybody. I understand that. And the between the margin kind of supplement pieces, I also think he's done a pretty decent job on in his tenure. The biggest question continues to be, when does the financial help begin? And you're going to find out really quickly over the next year, because Tarik Skubal is going to be worth a boatload of money. A boatload. If he stays healthy, he's going to be one of the highest paid pitchers in this sport. He's a Boris client as well, if he wasn't already going to get paid enough. So if there is a clear plan to maintain, which in Scott Harris's introductory press conference, he said was to develop and keep young talent. If that is the plan, then you're going to start hearing conversations about, do we extend Tarik Skubal, et cetera, et cetera. It's not going to happen this year. It shouldn't. He hasn't been healthy in a long time. He's got to prove he can pitch a full season. But if it's not in the cards, if extending Skubal is not something that is going to be financially backed by this organization, then in the next 2 years, you kind of have to trade him. My point is, with this whole conversation, all of this falls on your individual trust in Chris Ilitch. I know this kind of came off as derogatory toward Harris. It really wasn't meant to be. I do not have as big of issues with Scott Harris as a lot of people do, but I also think he has been far from perfect. If you look at the trade returns since he's taken over, there's really no long-term assets in any of those. I don't think there's an argument that, Matt Vierling is really the only notable one. We'll see what happens going forward, but he hasn't really brought in his entire tenure. You can include free agency in there too. Who has he brought in that wasn't here when he took over that is going to be a part of the long-term plan? And there's an argument there hasn't been one yet, and he's been here a decent amount of time. So but at the same time, I do think that, again, the between the margin, he's very active. The waiver claim thing can piss you off sometimes, but the constant trying to improve the organizational depth, I think he has done a really good job on. And letting Ryan Garko do his thing. He was promoted recently to vice president as well, so he's directly under him. I think Scott Harris genuinely has done some good since taking over. I think he's done a decent amount of good. But there's also definitely cause for concern, and comments like these certainly are head scratchers. And I do think at the end of the day, even if you're the biggest Scott Harris supporter ever, or if you are the biggest Scott Harris hater ever, that comments like this really fall back on ownership. And I don't talk about the Illich thing too much because I feel like there's some media outlets out there that's just all they talk about. It's just every Tigers conversation is just, the team's going to suck until Illich sells, or like this team will never be good under Illich. And that's like the opinion of some people, and that's fine. That's fine. If that is your opinion, that's obviously not fine. I don't want that to be true, but like that's fine if that's your opinion. But that is the main storyline at the end of the day, and will continue to be. So, like, I don't have an answer. I don't know. I've never spoken. I've never met Chris Illich in my life. I've never been in the same room as Chris Illich in my life. I don't know if he's going to get financially backed. I don't know if when he was hired, he was like, look, you're the Rays now. Have fun. Figure it out, Scott. I don't know. Weird saying my own name there. I don't know. But that's kind of all the different thoughts that I had. I know I just kind of like word vomited there, and I went to a lot of different points. We talked like Scooble's future. We talked, like Garco and like his impact. We talked about a lot of stuff in there. But like at the end of the day, the one point is just I'm talking in circles now. We can move on. We'll head to break here in a second, but it's just Chris Illich. Is he going to? Is he going to pony up? Because this upcoming winter, you can kind of tightrope your way out of the conversation of spending last winter. The free agent market wasn't awesome. You can kind of do it in his first offseason. He just got hired. Wanted to see what he had. I don't think there's an excuse this winter. It's a good free agent pool, and we already know in May that a handful of these guys are not long-term pieces. So these comments were made in May. We'll see what happens. I have a hard time getting like really red in the face upset over something that's 8 months away. And, he still can go out and sign a bigger name free agent in November. And all of this will be moot. So that's kind of where I stand. But those are my thoughts. I've been asked a lot about the Scott Harris comments on Tuesday, and those are kind of the million different thoughts that my brain had when they were made. Okay, cool. Let's move on. We will talk about Angel Hernandez really quickly, an injury update, and then we'll preview the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you all today about our friends over at FanDuel. It is such a fun time to be a sports fan. It's winner take all time. NBA and NHL. We have 4 teams left in both of those sports. We have the WNBA in full swing, one of the biggest WNBA seasons ever. And obviously, we are in the thick of baseball season. So FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, parlays, so much more as well. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all so much for tuning in. As always, went pretty long there in that previous segment, so we're going to kind of try to go quickly here in this third and final segment of the show. If we go over 30, I apologize. So really quickly, Shelby Miller was on a rehab assignment in AAA Toledo, walked a hitter, struck out a hitter in 1 inning of work. Fastball, I think Evan Petzold reported that it was 93.5 miles an hour was the velo on the fastball. I would imagine that he is probably pretty soon to return, maybe by the end of this week. They'll probably give him 1 or 2 more innings. They probably have an exact plan for, he is pitching this day, etc. So we'll keep tabs on that, but it does look, at first I was kind of scared he's going to be out for like months. So hopefully he's back on track and can get back in this bullpen that needs any help it can get at this present moment. Also want to talk really quickly about Angel Hernandez retiring. I think this is the one moment, it doesn't happen very often, but one of the few moments where all 30 fan bases just kind of united. And, as I've gotten older, I don't really do the, like dancing on graves, like when people retire or like get cut or lose their jobs. I certainly did when I was younger. But I've tried to be a lot better about that. This guy, this has been his livelihood for a very long time, etc. But has just been the cause of so much controversy. And it just feels like every single game he umped was just like it was noteworthy because of how poor it was. Like it wasn't like it got to the point where last year I knew his schedule. Like I legitimately, and like I'm a a weirdo, and like this, baseball is my life, and follow it very closely, religiously. Um, some people think it's weird, but like I knew like I knew every day what game Angel Hernandez had. Like I knew, and if he was behind home plate, I definitely knew. And that should never happen for an umpire. You know what I mean? Like outside of Pat Hoberg, who is a legend and is one of the best umpires like ever, statistically backed, one of the best umpires ever. You shouldn't be a household name if you're an ump, right? It's usually not a great thing if people know who you are as a home plate umpire, especially. And he just, man, it was just so stressful. And there were so many games that, I don't want to be the blame the ump guy. I have umpired obviously at much, much lower leagues. Like before, I really try to never be the like, oh my goodness, that the umpires blew this game for you type of analysis, because I think it's kind of lazy to an extent too. But it was really hard to avoid that with Angel Hernandez a lot of games. And obviously, again, like I don't know the dude personally. I wish him nothing but the best in his retirement, etc. He says it's a retirement. You can come to your own conclusions on if that's true or not. But I do think like God is real was trending on Twitter when he retired. That because of that, not for like just a coincidence. Like, so wishing him nothing but the best in his retirement. It's one of the biggest stories in baseball. I felt the need to talk about it. Just a wild, wild news story, and what consistently was. Happy retirement, Angel Hernandez, I guess is my point. The Tigers will play the Pittsburgh Pirates today on Wednesday. If you are listening to this on Wednesday, sounds like game one is going to be Jared Jones, and game two is going to be Paul Skeens for the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you're not aware, those are two of the biggest hot up-and-coming pitchers in our beautiful sport, and that is so unbelievably cool that we are going to see them. It's not unbelievably cool that I have no confidence the offense is going to do anything against them. The good news, if there is a silver lining, is that neither of them have been allowed to go super deep into ball games. And part of that's efficiency, but like Jared Jones, especially early in the year, was only going like 1-2 times through the lineup at most. Skeens hasn't really been able to go like 7-8 innings or anything like that. So we'll see. But it seems like both of them are kind of at 100 pitches, 90 pitches. So if you can take some pitches, work some counts, and raise a pitch count, you have the ability to get to a Pirates bullpen that is not exactly fantastic recently. The Pirates in general did their classic really hot start of the season and then fall off a cliff thing that they do every year. And I try to warn people about it every year because it happens every year. And somehow we always forget every April. And everybody's like, oh, this is the year the Pirates figured it out. And then nope, just kidding. It never is. But they have had obviously a lot of fun in the pitching department. And unfortunately, again, for the Tigers, they get two of the fun up-and-coming pitchers there. They are 25-29 on the season. Jared Jones, one of the biggest swing and miss pitchers in this sport. Fantastic K rate, fantastic whiff rate, fantastic chase rate. He's got an electric fastball. He has an otherworldly slider, has a curveball that he can drop in sometimes, and a changeup splitter thing that he can drop in sometimes as well. But he's mostly, I don't want to call him a two-pitch pitcher because he throws the curveball and changeup a decent amount, like enough to keep you off balance. But it's majority fastball slider. And the one thing with Jared Jones, and this is 10 starts into this dude's career. Okay, I think he's very talented. The one thing is that because gets a little kind of tunnel visioned on being a two-pitch pitcher, and one of those pitches is a breaking ball, there is an ability to hit him hard. He has given up a lot of hard contact, a lot of barrels this year, some extra base hits. Like there is an ability to hit him hard if you guess right. The issue is guessing right, and if you guess wrong, he's going to make you look silly. I have no confidence that the Tigers are really going to be able to consistently guess right, but if there is a silver lining to his game, that is it. And then we get to Paul Skeens, who is, of course, the number one pitching prospect in baseball. Once he graduates, it's going to be Jackson Jobe. This dude throws 101, 102 miles an hour on his fastball. He has a splitter that he calls a splinker because it is a splitter that goes 95 miles an hour. He is Duran out of the bullpen in Minnesota, but he's a starter. He's got a wicked slider that he throws a lot, 85, 87 miles an hour. He's unbelievable. It's some of the best stuff we've ever seen. He was pitching in college a year ago and is now already in the majors. There's a reason for that. He is maybe the best starting pitching prospect since Steven Strasburg. There's going to be an argument that he is a better prospect than Strasburg on pure stuff basis. So, that you got your work cut out for you. Sounds like the Tigers are going to go Tarek Skubal for one of those games, presumably game one. So that's going to be really fun. Tarek Skubal versus Jared Jones. Maybe go to FanDuel, take the under on that one. Game two is going to be Paul Skeens. It's not going to be Jack Flaherty like originally thought because they want to keep the rotation, not burn through two men in the rotation in one day. But it also can't be Matt Manning, because Matt Manning has not been back in Toledo. There's fixtures, so you can't just yo-yo a player and call him up, send him down, call him up, send him down. There's a certain amount of days that you have to go down if you are permanently on the team and not just like the 27th man for a rotation spot, for a rain-out doubleheader. So because he was a fixture in there, it wasn't just a random call-up for a doubleheader, he was in the rotation while Kenta Maeda was injured. Matt Manning can't get called back up. So, by the sounds of it, this hasn't been confirmed at the time of this recording, but Chris McCoskey tweeted it out on Tuesday that Keider Montero looks like he will be the starting pitcher for game two, presumably. Again, if this doesn't happen, I apologize for spreading some false news, but it does seem to be the rumor that is most likely to be true. Keider Montero obviously already on the 40-man, so it makes sense to me. Montero's a fun pitcher, man. He's struggled a little bit this year with just some walk numbers. His command has been shaky at times. His walk numbers are way up. But he has really, really good stuff, a mid-90s fastball that he can even get up into the upper 90s, maybe with some adrenaline in his first start. We see some of that 97, 98, but kind of sits, 93 to 95 pretty consistently, has a lot of spin. And that is something that the Tigers over the last 4 or 5 years have really hung their hat on with starting pitchers. So Keider Montero kind of fits that bill really well. Has a slider that spins a lot. My favorite pitch of his is his curveball. He loves to throw it when there are 2 strikes and he's ahead in the count, gets a lot of strikeouts with it. Also gets plenty on his slider. His slider, kind of a slider cutter-ish type of thing. A little bit too much run to be a slider, but is a decent velo pitch as well. Going to keep hitters off balance with those 3 pitches. Has a changeup too. I don't really like his changeup very much. It's been kind of a key point in his development and how good people think that he could be. But I really like the stuff. It's going to play at the major league level. It's all going to come down to command. And that's going to be the question not only today on Wednesday, but it's also going to be the question going forward for Keider Montero. I still think he probably ends up in the bullpen long term, but I know my friend Rahilio over at Tigers Minor League Report and Motor City Metrics is huge on him still being a starter. So depends on who you ask, but regardless, the stuff is major league ready. And he gets strikeouts, been a big strikeout guy for the last 2 or 3 seasons. hopefully that translates. But really fun. Major League debut, good stuff, fun prospect. Hopefully it goes well for him. A lot of really fun pitching in this doubleheader that will be today. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will be back tomorrow recapping 2 ball games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like I said, sorry that this episode ran a little bit long. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then. Go Tigers.